Hi from the B&H Review Desk. I'm Larry Becker, and this time we're going to have a look at Nikon's enthusiast 12 megapixel camera, the Nikon Coolpix P7700. So what makes this an enthusiast point and shoot? Well, it's the loaded feature list. It has all kinds of bells and whistles that pros and camera nerds like me look for in a camera. It has a 12.2 megapixel CMOS sensor, an articulated LCD screen with a 920 1000 dot resolution, a really nice zoom range that consumers would call a 7.1x optical zoom, and pros would say it's a 35mm equivalent zoom to a 28 to 200mm lens. And there's access to just about every setting, mode, and adjustment you might want if you're used to a full-featured DSLR. Now let's talk about the images and the sensor. It's a 1/1.7-inch CMOS sensor that's the same size as the other big competitor in this price range and class of camera, the Canon G15. It has a high ISO rating, up to 6400, but you'll start to see bothersome noise in the ISO 800 and ISO 1600 images, so it's not likely most people will want to boost the ISO quite that high. The camera can capture JPEG, RAW, or both. And while I personally like the extra control I have in post-processing with RAW images, the camera seems to take a while to clear those RAW images from the buffer. So after using the camera for a little while, I just stuck with the fine quality JPEG images for my shooting. I mentioned that this camera has an impressive feature set, so let's look at some of those features. I like the weight and the grip of the camera. While it's among the largest point and shoots out there, and you will need big pockets to call it pocketable, it's got a great feel to somebody that's used to shooting DSLRs. And the direct access to controls is another comforting thing for shooters like me. The mode dial has program, shutter, aperture, and full manual modes, plus scene modes and special effects, movie modes, and 3 separate user modes that you can use to save your personal preferences. And the exposure compensation dial was another pro-level feature that I really appreciate. I wasn't surprised that the P7700 has a multi-selector, but I was pleasantly surprised that it also has a command and a sub-command dial, so I felt comfortable navigating around in the various settings. For friends who are new to shooting controls, but who want a camera that they can use to learn photography, I really like the scene modes, especially the scene auto selector mode, where the camera automatically picks the best scene for you. While I was testing this, I was really impressed with the macro focusing for surprisingly close-up images. There are some gimmicky special effects available, and while a couple are pretty cool, as somebody who knows Photoshop, I like having all my images as good and normal as possible when they come out of the camera. And if I want to add a retro sepia or something with light beams, I'll do that myself later. Then again, these are just the kinds of wow features that some new photographers will enjoy playing with. There's a dial on the left as you hold the camera called the quick menu button, and I really like it. It gives you super quick access to the white balance, ISO, bracketing, and image quality settings, and Nikon's picture control settings as well. But I really like that it also has a position for my menu. Whatever I find that I use a lot or I want quick access to, like formatting a memory card, I just put it in my menu and I don't have to search through pages of menus for it again. In that same vein, there are 2 user programmable function buttons, one on the front and one on the top, but I personally don't find myself using these buttons very much. Still, if you enjoy customizing your camera and a function button will help you, these might come in handy. When it comes to speed, this camera powers up rather quickly, and zooming is pretty quick too. Compared to other cameras in this class, focusing was about average. It wasn't fast or slow, but it was quick enough that it wasn't a problem for any of my shooting. The P7700 is the next step after Nikon's P7100. So things like the sensor and the tilt swivel LCD are an improvement. The only step backward is that they got rid of the optical viewfinder, and that's something that I'm personally going to miss. Video quality is improved, and now it has full 1080p HD video, But there are some significant drawbacks when it comes to shooting video. Autofocus is slow while shooting, and if you want to zoom, it's noticeably loud when you're using the internal microphone. If you want to use manual focus, it's also pretty noisy. On a positive note, there's a mic jack, so you don't have to rely on the built-in stereo mic for capturing sound, though it does a pretty good job for informal videography if you're not zooming and your focus is set. There's a more manual movie setting, and I found that the movie custom setting allows some nice control while setting up a shot. But once you're recording, those settings are fixed, and that includes zoom control. Now, back to some redeeming qualities. There's both a built-in pop-up flash and a hot shoe for speed lights, as well as other hot shoe accessories. But I have to tell you something that I was really impressed by. Now, the hot shoe flash is compatible with Nikon speed lights, and it gives you TTL flash metering. That's cool. But the pop-up flash actually has a commander mode, and that's capable of controlling a Nikon speed light off camera, and it can trigger it remotely from that little built-in pop-up flash. Now that's really impressive. The P7700 has some pretty impressive capabilities, but there are a couple of areas where the spec sheet alone doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. For instance, it starts up very quickly, but if the LCD panel is closed in its protected position, it won't turn on at all. And since it has a separate lens cap, you'll need to take it off before shooting. I'd recommend that you get one of those lens cap retainers so that you could quickly pop it off the lens and not worry about losing it. Another area where the spec sheet sounds impressive is the 8 frames per second burst rate. The thing is, it can only grab 6 full-size frames before the buffer gets full, and it stops you from shooting. And if you're shooting RAW or RAW plus JPEG, you'll be surprised how long it takes to clear the buffer. Now, in spite of these little issues, I really like this camera for shooting stills, and it's definitely a worthwhile point-and-shoot camera for advanced amateurs and pros looking for an all-in-one setup that gives them the controls and features that they love about their DSLRs. If you're in the market for a high-end point-and-shoot that will make pros happy and will help budding photographers grow and explore the possibilities, and full-featured video recording isn't at the top of your list, the Nikon Coolpix P7700 is a great camera to consider. And if you're already a Nikon DSLR shooter, especially one who owns one of those Nikon speed lights that's compatible with Nikon's creative lighting system, there's no question the Nikon Coolpix P7700 would be a great addition. For B&H Photo and Kelby Training, I'm Larry Becker. Thanks for watching.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.